In Revelation chapter 20 verse 6, it says that those who are part of the first resurrection will be priests of Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. And in verse 7, we are told that the 1,000 years are completed. What happens between verse 6 and verse 7? This is where God's kingdom comes to be on earth as it is in heaven. This is Christ's 1,000-year reign on earth. Christ's reign as king has been prophesied by the prophets. Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6. For a child will be born to us, and a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. There will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from then on and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. The Old Testament Messianic prophecies, for example in 2 Samuel chapter 7 verse 10 to 16, anticipated an earthly kingdom. This prophecy of a descendant of David sitting on a Davidic throne will be fulfilled in the millennium, when Jesus Christ rules the earth as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. What are some characteristics of Christ's kingdom on earth? Isaiah chapter 2 verse 3. For the Lord will go forth from Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he will judge between the nations and will render decisions for many peoples. And they will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, and never again will they learn war. During the reign of Christ, there will be no more war, thus no need for swords and spears, so they will be hammered into plowshares and pruning hooks. Isaiah 11:3. And he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he will judge the poor and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Also righteousness will be the belt about his loins, and faithfulness the belt about his waist. This 1,000 years is a time of unprecedented peace, prosperity, justice, righteousness, and holiness. Politically, physically, spiritually, and morally. This is due to two important facts of the millennium. First, the absence of Satan and his demons. And secondly, the presence and perfect reign of our Lord Jesus Christ in all his perfect wisdom, righteousness, and power. Isaiah 11:9. For the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The knowledge of the Lord will cover the entire earth just as waters cover the sea. All will have the opportunity to know the Lord intellectually and relationally. The wilderness and desert will be restored to fruitfulness and abundance. Isaiah 35. The wilderness and the desert will be glad, and the Arabah or desert will rejoice and blossom like a crocus, a flower. It will blossom profusely and rejoice with rejoicing and shout of joy. Behold, days are coming, declares the Lord, when the plowman will overtake the reaper and the treader of grapes, him who sows seed. When the mountains will drip sweet wine and all the hills will be dissolved. Isaiah 11:6. And the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little boy will lead them. Also the cow and the bear will graze, the young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child will put his hand on the viper's den. Nature will be transformed. No longer will there be prey and predators among the animals, because it seems that all animals will be herbivores. Isaiah 65:23. They will not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they are the offspring of those blessed by the Lord, and their descendants with them. There will be babies born and children raised in the millennial earth, and their descendants will populate the earth. At the beginning of the millennium, all adults will be saved, as non-believers would have been purged out. But as the millennium progresses, there will be false profession of faith. Sickness and deformity will be gone. The sick and the diseased will be healed. Isaiah 33 verse 24. And no resident will say, I am sick. 35 verse 5. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped. Then the lame will leap like a deer and the tongue of the mute will shout for joy. In this transformed ecology of the earth and the relationships between the living organism, people will live longer, so much longer that if someone dies before reaching 100 years old, he will be considered as a curse. Isaiah 65 verse 20. No longer will there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not live out his days. For the youth will die at the age of 100, and the one who does not reach the age of 100 will be thought a curse. Lifespans will be longer, but that people will still die during the millennial age. Why I believe in the millennium. God promised to Abraham and his descendants a land, but Israel has never possessed the specific boundaries that God promised in Genesis 15. This possession is for eternity. And then God's promise to David that his heir would sit on the throne of Israel forever. Promise of the new covenant, there will be no need for proclamation, for all Israelites, from the least to the greatest, shall know God. All this will be fulfilled in the millennium, during Christ's reign on earth. In other words, God always keeps his promises.